Electric is now Creta. A very bold tagline. It might even make Mercedes-Benz say, hey, copycat much? But come on, if Mercedes-Benz can say electric now has a Maybach, Hyundai can definitely shoot for the stars with the new Creta. Because you see, in 2024, they sold a total of 187,000 Cretas. Sure, that put it in the 5th spot, but if you were to compare it to the top step of the podium, that was the Tata Punch, it was only 25,000 units behind. A 20 lakh rupee SUV going toe-to-toe with micro SUVs, hatchbacks, etc. That is definitely a big feat. So electric is now Creta. Basically Hyundai saying, if you are the EV type and you have a 20-25 lakh rupee budget, this could be your Jeong Chingu, or best friend in Korean.
Should your Jeong Chingu show its true colors, you would see it comes in more than just black and white. 10 shades to be precise, including this light blue, which can be had in the gloss finish that you see here or even a matte finish. Quite cool. To remind you that it's a Hyundai EV, it borrows a page from the Ioniq's pixelated design playbook. The grille and bumper especially. The headlights and taillights scream new Creta, but the slab front end instantly adds the electric vibe. And the grille-free front screams I'm guilt-free, even louder. Oh, and it's not all about style over substance. There are functional bits too, like the active flaps in the bumper that open or close depending on whether it's cooling the powertrain or improving aerodynamic efficiency.
So basically, this EV BFF of yours looks handsome even when it opens its mouth. Sure, it's a bit flashy, but it definitely gives a distinction over the ICE sibling. Also lets the onlookers know that you are driving the electric. This logo also doubles up as a charging flap. Fancy, right? Fancier still is this multicolored light ring around the charger.
Proportions? No complaints. It's not a born EV, but the standard Creta shape translates well to the EV.
Because let's not forget, the Creta's PB platform was originally born in 2014, then evolved into the K2 platform and now adapted for this electric. So it's something like evolving from a flip phone to a multifold tablet.
That explains the smaller battery packs, 42 kWh and 51.4 kWh. While there is no badge on the car to tell which pack it is equipped with, a quick peek under the floor will reveal the difference.
If that battery extends all the way back to the edge of the 2600mm wheelbase, it's clearly the bigger battery. Now that battery is IP67 rated. They've even drop tested it from 16 feet. But honestly, I would have liked to see a better enclosure in that battery pack, something more professional looking. This one just looks like an aftermarket bolt-on job.
But to be fair, anything thicker would have eaten into the ground clearance. Surprisingly though, the 200mm ground clearance of the Creta Electric is actually 10mm higher than the standard Creta. The Creta EV also sits 20mm taller on the brochure because the car is lifted to accommodate these batteries.
Ingress and egress is going to be even easier than before, especially if you are going to be ferrying around older people. Now, 2 adults and a kid is what you want in the back seat, not more than that, because you only get 2 adjustable headrests, nothing for the center. But this has always been a comfortable place to be in, and that doesn't change with the electric. The knee room is quite good, foot space is quite nice, headroom is also quite nice, and well, the view outside of the window is also quite good. So absolutely no complaints there.
The cushion angle for the rear seat has been changed, but the under-thigh support is still a bit lacking.
But it's not a deal breaker. It's not something that will make you swap seats or cars. Now, you'll also see that they've included trays from the Alcazar. So in case you want to binge on some food or drink while you're on your road trips, you can do that. You want to binge on K-drama instead, you can do that too with your iPad or your tablet, because your laptops are not going to fit in here, because while it does have a 3.5 kg limit, it's simply not wide enough to accommodate a laptop. So your laptop will have to go back to being, well, a laptop. And in case you are still using some older devices, you have a 3-pin plug right here to use them to charge them.
When the lights go out, the EV glow up begins. ICE blue ambient lighting replaces the standard Creta's yellow tones, because you know EV equal to blue. The screens up front are carried over though. The instrument cluster now speaks EV fluently, showing you range anxiety in style. But on the move, the blue pulsations are quite distracting, at least till they get into your blind spot with time. Up front, the 10.25-inch infotainment stays put, paired with an 8-speaker Bose system.
At times when you're feeling lazy or you're over-reliant on Alexa, well, there is now Alexa home-to-car compatibility, which essentially means you can ask your trusty virtual girlfriend to charge the car for you, check on the doors, in fact, remind you of any other things that you may have forgotten to do. Just don't blame her if you forgot to plug in the charger.
On that note, Hyundai's BlueLink connected tech lives up to its name, goes bluer than ever with 70 features now, including remote charging options for better planning.
And like automotive content on YouTube now, the Creta is also getting stronger with Hindi. It can understand up to 132 Hindi commands now. Let's give that a try. क्या कल बारिश होगी?
Sorry, I didn't hear that clearly.
क्या कल बारिश होगी?
Sorry, I didn't understand that. Try saying commands to see what voice commands can be used.
Sunroof खोलिए.
Opening the sunroof.
But as you'd expect, the knowledge can sometimes be limited. And it's not just Hindi. The Creta also wants to speak to you in Morse code. You see this little design right here on the steering wheel? That's Morse for the alphabet H. Finally get memory seats for the driver's seat. So in case you have a real partner and you want to play passenger princess, you can now do that. And at the risk of sounding corny, the Creta also ensures that your backside has an even cleaner conscience now, because now you have recycled PET bottles and corn extracts contributing to the upholstery materials. Sustainable for sure. More Mercedes-Benz inspiration comes from this drive selector that sits behind the steering wheel. Unlike Mercedes-Benz, however, the placement is much lower, which means that you will not confuse it to be the indicator or the turn blinker stock, and you will not, turn things around. On that note, selecting the gear is slightly different. You are basically twisting this particular button right here to make the selection. However, it changes the typical PRND sequence for a PDNR sequence. All said and done, this is still shift by wire, and putting the selector right here frees up some essential space on the tunnel console. In fact, it's got a floating tunnel console like we've seen with the Ioniq.
There are plenty of cleverly designed storage spaces in the cabin, including plenty of cubby holes in the tunnel console.
The boot space, still 433 liters like the standard Creta, but the loading lip is a little higher. So in case of heavier items, well, you need to plan accordingly. Now moving to the front, because there is no engine, you do get a 22-liter frunk for bootleggers, I'm guessing. But with the kind of popularity that the Creta has, I won't be surprised if the cops start putting that on their checklist as well. So again, plan carefully. Now, in case you need to disconnect the battery terminals, maybe to replace the battery or to reset the infotainment, in that case, this might look like a bit of a difficulty, though it isn't. All you need to do is pull out this panel and you have easy access to the battery terminals. Okay, let's go for a drive now, shall we? Now, the standard Creta is so refined that I usually have a hard time guessing if it's a petrol or a diesel. Now, this being the electric, it's even more refined. It takes the game to a whole new level. Dead silent. Of course, there is this startup chime that sounds like the welcome note of a Korean convenience store. But after that, once you start driving, there's absolutely no sounds, no vibrations, no rustles, no rattles, nothing. Nothing that will disturb your K-pop karaoke sessions. And unlike your singing skills, this car gets off the mark briskly because it's an electric.
Depending on the variant you choose, you get a humble 135 PS or a punchy 171 PS to choose from. The latter will go from standstill to 100 in 7.9 seconds, a full second quicker than the Creta N-Line.
If you keep pushing the car hard, you are going to have a hard time getting to even 300 kilometers of range from this car. But Hyundai says if you drive responsibly, be the better guy, you should be able to get up to 473 kilometers from the larger battery pack. However, realistically speaking, I think a 350 kilometer range is something that you should expect from the bigger battery, about 250 kilometers from the smaller battery. That's in the real world, of course.
To maximize range, there are active flaps in the front bumper that we spoke of, the flat underbody that we showed you, and even some intelligent touches like the air conditioning, which now has a driver-only mode, which essentially will switch off air conditioning for your passengers and only keep it concentrated on the driving seat.
Digging deeper, the battery management system is borrowed from the Ioniq. Hyundai also claims that they have rigorously tested this car in the hot and cold regions of India to ensure that everything works flawlessly. Hyundai also claimed that they have done a lot of water wading tests, including 450 mm of water wading, where they brought the vehicle to a halt, kept it like that for about a couple of minutes, and then again drove out. No faults, no warnings, nothing. Well, if that is true, if you're from Mumbai, if you know what the Mumbai rains are, then that should be some peace of mind.
The battery supports 400-volt charging systems and features fuses that automatically disconnect the battery under high voltage fluctuations, which is pretty much all the time in India. Using a standard 30 kilowatt public fast charger, you're looking at around 2 hours to get from 10 to 80%, or 6 to 7 hours for a full charge on an 11 kilowatt slow charger. But the fast charging ceiling for the Creta EV is pretty high.
As of now, the Creta Electric only supports 50 kilowatt fast charging, which should get you from 10 to 80% in about 58 minutes. Later in the year, Hyundai assures they will upgrade this to 100 kilowatt through an OTA update. And that should shave the time down to 39 minutes. Translation, you still need to plan your coffee and food breaks wisely, or at least bring along a book and pretend to enjoy the ambience of the charging station. Speaking of enjoying the ambience of a public charging station, well, there are about 16,000 public chargers for cars in India right now. But let's be honest, most of the heavy lifting is going to be done by the home chargers because that is what makes it cost effective. Now, Hyundai understands this and Hyundai wants to achieve sort of a middle ground. So what they're doing is, one, they have a unified app, which is more like an aggregator. So it's going to give you access to about 10,000 public chargers, and you will be able to charge your car, plan everything right through the app, make the payment right through the app. So that unified architecture really helps. You don't need to download multiple apps. The second thing that they want to do, the more important bit, is that they want to install these reliable, manned, CCTV-enabled, ultra-fast charging networks across India's popular corridors. So you're looking at between 30 to 150 kilowatt charging speeds. And Hyundai also assures that these will be ridiculously cheap for Hyundai owners and competitively priced for public use. That means that even if you don't have a Hyundai EV, you will still be able to use it. Further to that effect, they are going to install at least 295 stations by the end of 2025 at all the Hyundai dealerships. Now, these are going to be 11 kilowatt slow chargers, but they'll be very competitively priced and they'll be open for everyone to use, which I think is a very responsible move. And the charging shenanigans don't end there. Remember, a few years back on this very show, we showed you a demonstration of the car being used to make the payment at the charging station itself. It was a demonstration given to us by ZF. Now that tech is here. It's a part of this car. The unified payment interface that I was talking about with the Hyundai app is the Hyundai Wallet, and that is also a part of the infotainment. So at compatible charging stations, about 1150 of those, you would be able to just simply drive in the car, do your charging and pay from the car itself. That's smarter than your local Kirana shop.
Speaking of smart, the Creta EV gets an even richer safety suite.
Like the standard Creta, you also get ADAS functionality with the car. However, it has been fine-tuned to work even better, or it has been fine-tuned to tie in very nicely with the electric powertrain. Since you have Regen, since you have a different way in which the deceleration happens, they have fine-tuned it nicely to ensure that even when the ADAS is working in full swing, nothing feels unnerving or unnatural. And that is something that I like. Now, this being an EV, you also get multiple levels of regen, ranging all the way from 0, which is completely off, to level 4. Now, 0 is completely off, like I said, so you get this proper freewheeling if you need to. Level 4 being the highest, that is what you want to use in the city. That is what I've found the most convenient for bumper-to-bumper traffic jams or even moderately trafficked roads, because you can do proper single pedal driving. The car will come to a complete halt as well if needed. Now, level 3 is what I have found to be a very good middle ground for using on highways, extra urban conditions, etc., where there is enough amount of regen, enough amount of braking from the motors for these kind of speeds, but at the same time, it's not too jerky. I really like how fine-tuned the regen is across all the modes. Some of you may prefer level 2 a bit more to level 3, but I think level 3 is the best middle ground for me. Now, in terms of the power delivery, the regen, all of this feels so refined, it feels so linear that it makes some of the born electric vehicles from this segment feel a bit of a hit and miss. That is how good it is. And at the end of the day, that is exactly what you want. If you're upgrading from a hatchback, if you're upgrading from other smaller EVs or other smaller vehicles, you still want the driving to feel as natural as possible. And that is exactly what they have achieved with this. And I quite like it. Now the all-important question, ride and handling. With the big batteries in the floor, with that heavy belly, does it still ride and drive well? Well, I think they have completely nailed it in terms of the ride quality. It's phenomenal. It doesn't feel too heavy. It doesn't sort of sink in when you hit a pothole or approach or negotiate a speed hump. It just doesn't feel that heavy at all. The suspension tuning is spot on. Yes, it does feel heavy when you tackle some switchbacks, even something as simple as slowing down and negotiating all the barricades that we have here on the ECR in Chennai. It does feel like it's a heavy car. So around winding roads, it does make its weight evident. But does it ever get unnerving? It doesn't. We have seen with heavier electric vehicles or heavier electric SUVs especially, that things can get unnerving pretty quickly when you hit the bends or when you really want to brake hard for something. In this car, nothing. It's so nicely tuned. It just feels like it's a standard Creta that's carrying some additional luggage, That's how natural it feels. Will it change with 5 people in the car and a lot of luggage? I don't think so. The way the suspension has been tuned, I think it will take on all of that quite nicely. So let's sum it up. Like I said right at the start, the Creta sold 187,000 units last year. I mean, that's not just a feat that it achieved last year. Year on year, the Creta has only been doing extremely well. That shows the kind of trust that people put in this brand and in this particular model. And now, there is a Creta for everyone. You don't want to splurge much. You just want a nice, well-kitted car with a very good powertrain. You have the petrol, the naturally aspirated petrol at your disposal. You want something punchier, you have the Creta N-Line. You want to go the distance, you want something torquier, you have the Creta Diesel. And now you have the Creta Electric. You want to feel green, you want to have a cleaner conscience, you don't want to make frequent trips to the fuel stations. You have the electric. And I'm happy to report that it fits right in. All the stuff that we love about the Creta, the drivability, the ride quality, the space, the way it looks, the way it handles, the kind of resale value it has, all of that is safeguarded very nicely to this EV transition. So even though this is not a born electric, while the battery may look like a bolt-on job, the car doesn't feel like something that was an afterthought. So at the risk of sounding biased, well, once you drive it, you will know what they mean when they say electric is now Creta.